Hi, I'm Evilise Page, and thanks for listening to the Believe Big podcast, the show where we take a deep dive into your healing with health experts, integrative practitioners, biblical faith leaders, and cancer thrivers from around the globe. Welcome to today's episode on the Believe Big podcast. My name is Evilise Page, and it's an honor to spend this time with you. Today, you will hear from Shannon Berk on the overall health impact of reducing inflammation. Shannon Berk is a manual physical therapist that utilizes an integrative approach to treating the whole person. Her philosophy is that the body has a natural tendency to strive towards a state of health and wellness, and that there are barriers to a body's ability to reach that state. She works at discovering and helping her patients discover what the barriers are and facilitates healing towards the goal of health. She currently is an adjunct professor in Michigan State's osteopathic continuing education program and is on the team of professionals that developed the CFMM, Certified Functional Manual Medicine Certification. Shannon is also one of the co-founders with her husband, Justin, and a family liaison for Just Empower Kids, a Maryland-based nonprofit that supports holistic and nutritional care in conjunction with a child's traditional cancer treatment. Welcome, Shannon, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Before I was feeling some excitement, and then I realized like excitement and fear kind of feel the same way in your body, you know?
Yes. Yes. I tell people when you're nervous or you're fearful, it's just tell yourself you're excited. You're excited. It's the same feeling. Before we get into inflammation and a little bit about Just Empower Kids, our listeners always like to know what our guest's favorite health tip is. So are you able to share yours with us?
Yes. I wanted to be inventive and clever. So mine is talk less and listen more. And what I mean by that is in the global sense, but also in the sense that health is a state of wholeness for mind, body, and our spirit. And whenever there's more than two or more things, two concepts, two people, that it forms a relationship. And relationships require communication, which is the talking and the listening.
I love that. And I always, would say to myself and my family, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I think that just brings so much peace to know that, hey, if we have ears of understanding, that we're able to see things from different perspectives and appreciate those in front of us more. So I really like that. Thank you. Well, I have known you and Justin for quite some time, and I am just so thankful for what you all do in the pediatric cancer world. And, it's just incredible with what you're doing. Can you share with our listeners what is Just Empower Kids and what you do?
Yes. It would be my pleasure. It is an effort of heart on both my husband and myself's part. So it started off before COVID, where we wanted to support the holistic realm of a child's cancer journey. So we paired up children with providers and paid for their care, whether that was acupuncture or massage or manual physical therapy. And then COVID hit, so we had to, pivot like everyone else. And so we've developed nutritional programs where we supply healthy whole meals to their houses. We get them delivered directly there. We support a food pantry at Johns Hopkins Hospital for their cancer units and their children's unit. We also do a relief and restore program where we financially reimburse things that the insurance company don't pay for. We just started a parking program because we realized that parking was this piece of stress that families were enduring, and we wanted to relieve the stress, because part of holistic treatment is actually helping them manage their lives. So we're kind of like the nurturers of the family and the kids in a way that maybe some of the other healthcare institutions can't or don't come into play. And we're really fluid. We're still kind of small. It's only 4 years old. So I just had a mom of a kid ask about self-care and how she could get some support around that. So, and that's something that, as a family liaison, I'll go research, a spa day for her, get her some hours away to, recoup and come back to herself, where she can be, a little bit better to support her family.
That is just fantastic. Yeah, there are a lot of organizations that give resources, and as far as, but having organizations that provide financial assistance are very few and rare. So I really, really appreciate what you do. And we have listeners that listen throughout the country and world. And so my question to you is, do you only help pediatric cancer patients in Maryland or across the United States, like Believe?
So we only do it in Maryland. If a child is being treated at a Maryland hospital, no matter where they're from. So there are people that come to Johns Hopkins from, different parts of the world. So we had to contain, just because we, have limited financial resources. And so, we started with our home state. And the hope is that someday this will kind of take off, and that holistic treatment will, kind of get some legs, and that, other people will, develop in other states.
That's fantastic. So. Yes. And if people wanted to reach out to Just Empower Kids, what would be the best way to do that?
We have a website. It's justempowerkids.org, and that's just JUSTINPOWER kids.org.
I love it. Is that after your husband, Justin?
Well, so he's a weather guy, and his weather website is Justin Weather. So it was kind of keeping it in the family. Yeah.
I love it. I love that. Yeah. It's great. Well, wonderful. Well, let's get into inflammation. And I know you deal with it a lot as a physical therapist as well. So everyone is familiar with pain, swelling, redness, heat. That is classically known as inflammation. It's a part of our body's defense system. It helps protect and to heal itself. But I want to discuss with you today the type of inflammation that causes disease and ways to combat it. So can you share with our listeners what the difference is? What is chronic inflammation?
So chronic inflammation is, there's a lot of different research out there, but chronic inflammation is basically our body's defense mechanisms gone awry. It's got the wisdom. It knows how to deal with acute stressors, acute invaders. It's brilliant and wise around knowing exactly what to do to come in and protect us. The problem is that, we have a lifestyle, a culture that has kind of introduced these low-level invaders that are kind of quiet. And so our bodies are always attempting to, go in and rescue us and protect us. But just like, a human globally, eventually get worn out, and you can no longer sustain the effort to keep fighting. And that's when you kind of go from this low-level symptomology of a chronic inflammation into disease, processes,
And so what are some of those things that causes this wrong type of inflammation? What are the things that we're doing that's causing this?
Well, we have, lifestyle choices, alcohol, smoking, the things that we kind of historically have known that aren't the best for us. We have diet and nutrition, which I think is one of the biggest things, where, we have a lot of processed foods. They're easy to get. They taste delicious. and we go towards pleasure and away from pain. And so, we are attracted, sugar, the high refined sugar, high glycemic foods, saturated fats. These are all kind of things that I think our bodies can handle a little bit of anything, like I said, it's a wise mechanism, and, but too much puts you over the threshold, and we can't cope with it. So there's also things like, what people don't know is you can exercise. Exercise is supposed to be great, but there's also a threshold for that over which your body can't handle it. It's dumping too many chemicals into the system and can't handle that.
Great.
Yeah, there's, I could keep going.
Yeah,
all of my books, right?
Yeah, there's a huge list. And so let's isolate some of those things. So, as far as like food, so why is sugar bad? You hear it all the time, and especially in cancer. And, we have kids who, and adults in hospitals, and we know sugar's bad, and yet they're rolling out soda and bars. And that's why I love that food pantry that you're starting. Why is sugar bad?
I'm not a dietitian, and I don't have a degree or a background in the physiology of nutrition. But as far as sugar and what it does to our body has, a pancreas, which is to process sugar. And there's natural sugars, and then there's actually sugars that are easier to process, but refined sugar causes our pancreas and the rest of our body to spike its blood sugar levels. And the spike in blood sugar levels causes this additional chemical overload. Cortisol increases. Cortisol is known for obesity increases as well. So our body's not made to have those spikes. It's made to be kind of in this, constant state of nourishment. And the refined sugar spikes us. So
yes.
And do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's funny. It also causes the cancer cells to multiply faster with those who are in a cancering process. It's called the Warburg effect. And I read this in the Radical Remission book. And it just says that when sugar is introduced, the cancer cells thrive on it. And so it actually caused them to gain more energy and multiply. And that's why, especially with those with cancer, it's especially important to avoid and to cease sugar, because it causes your cancer to fuel. You hear people, cancer doesn't fuel sugar. Well, in essence, it causes those cells to want more and activate them to want more sugar, and it causes your cancer to thrive. So I was like so blown out of the water when I heard that Warburg effect that was, from the 1940s, that he discovered that and won the Nobel Peace Prize from it. And it's rarely discussed. And so it's so important that people realize those differences, like you mentioned, that there's a difference between eating an apple and gaining the sugars from that, and then also the sugars from processed foods like donuts and, cakes and things like that are even more harmful. But yeah, and so that's, I'm glad that you mentioned that.
And we actually have, like this in children, it's this complex thing to kind of work through is, they feel like, crappy. And so doctors are really like, get anything in them. And so they are kind of being fed the things that are maybe not good for the underlying disease process, so it's always that complex management. I wouldn't, as a mom, I know that I would have to struggle with that. We actually did introduce a ninja smoothie program where we send a smoothie out to every family so that possibly they could put some fruits and maybe even some vegetables in there and try to get them to have something sweet that's, soothing to the mouth, with like mouth sores and stuff, that would be nutritious as well.
That is really important. And we have some other tips if individuals wanted to dive in deeper into the sugar and into the other aspects of avoiding it. We had a podcast with Jess Kelly with Remission Nutrition, and also Dagmara Baini, who also is a pediatric oncologist. And so she shared some tips for kids, and Jess Kelly as far as adults as well. So those might be good to check back into to dive in a little deeper. But what about, you hear all the time too, like looking at food labels and with your pantry and things that you're hosting now at Hopkins, a lot of people don't realize even the type of oils that they should avoid and use, what do you say about that?
I hesitate because I don't want to call out the food industry, but maybe more people should be. But there's a lot of cheap oils, they are cheap to put into foods, like corn oils. There's quite a few. There's a whole list, but the healthier oils, are more like avocado oil and olive oil. Again, I'm not a nutritionist. I can't, I want to make sure that's clear. But there are oils that our body doesn't process as easily and as well. And the more natural they are, the easier our bodies can process them. And there's a lot of processing that's going on. So make sure you do your research behind what kind of oil is in, and corn oils and everything.
It is, and you even think, well, if I just shop at Whole Foods, then I'll be fine. But so many of those oils I've discovered, even in myself, cause so much inflammation. And it's amazing. You think popcorn is a great treat, right? But it depends on the quality of popcorn that you're eating. And it's one of my treats that I give myself when I go to the movie theater. I get a bag of popcorn, and I don't put the butter on it, but I love the popcorn. And I notice the next day that I have inflammation. And I'm like, okay, I need to get into the sauna and start rehabbing from that popcorn. But it's so important. People don't realize that even something as small that they can do that can help reduce the inflammation just by the oils they're using. And like you said, those avocado oils for high heat, or the coconut oil cooking for high heat. The olive oils mainly for salads and things like that to drizzle over, are so much healthier, and making your own salad dressing. So yes.
So I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
So when you say that you ate popcorn and then you could feel the inflammation the next day, what are the symptoms for you specifically where you would know that you have now increased inflammation?
Yeah, I immediately see it in my hands and my feet. My hands are swollen the next day. Same thing if I eat out at a Chinese restaurant and I didn't confirm that they didn't use MSG or high sodium foods that they tend to be. The next day, my fingers look like sausages. It's amazing. And so things like exercising, the sauna, or I do a castor oil pack and things like that help my body detox that out and help to reduce the inflammation, hydrating and things like that. Yeah.
I think that those symptoms are really, very personal. And so that's where the listening to your body is really important, because, I have some underlying pathology with discs in my neck. And so it's normally kept, pretty quiet. But if I eat something that has, some, things that inflame me, I might actually start to get some achiness into my shoulders, these symptoms that are actually like this underlying thing that I kind of have it's almost like it magnifies my already existing issue that I might have, just kind of going on. So it's really important, I think, to get to know your particular symptoms for increased inflammation.
Yeah. And what do you do to reduce your inflammation when you're in that state?
Well, I love that you brought up castor oil packs because no one talks about them.
Yes.
So I love Epsom salts baths. I am a huge fan. I have researched, what that physiologically does to our system. There is science behind it. It's not just grandma's cure, but she was right. I drink an excess amount of water to flush my system. I do some supplements as well to kind of boost my my liver enzymes and my liver flushing, so that I have more support in the detoxification process internally. Yes, those are my biggies.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the Epsom salt. So I know many people may not know that. So explain to us that process. Do you just fill your tub? How much do you put in? How long do you stay in order to feel the therapeutic effects of it?
Well, so I use more than what people, what the bag recommends or whatever, but it's usually 2 cups in your tub, a warm tub, and then soak for 20 to 30 minutes. I do it probably almost every night.
That's amazing.
Kind of addicted to it, but it's also like a really good time to quiet yourself and come back to, a little bit more of a peaceful place. Sometimes I take a book in there. Sometimes I just light a candle and I do some breathing techniques, because breathing is also something that helps with inflammation. A lot of inflammation has oxidative stress, which is kind of like the stress we have from not having enough oxygen in our body. So breathing and doing some deep diaphragmatic breath work can actually help with inflammation too.
So how do you do the deep breath work? So I know, some people say to breathe in for a 4 count, hold it for 4 count, and then release it for 4 counts and do that 4 times. Is that what you suggest, or what you do? What do you do for deep breathing?
I do something called square breathing.
Okay.
And square breathing is, if you think of a square, you would count up the square, inhale. So 4 for you, because that's your number right now. It would be breathing in for 4 and then holding it for 4. And then taking 4 counts to breathe out as well, and then holding it out for 4. The first step, though, is for people to understand that, we do have these 2 systems, a fight or flight system and a rest and digest system in our nervous system. And the fight or flight system is actually activated when you are inflamed, and you tend to breathe up through here, kind of like that. And diaphragmatic breathing is where you take your breath down into your belly. And so every time you inhale, your belly button should actually extend out. And as you, exhale, it should actually come back towards you. So seeing the difference, because just inhaling and holding it, you could be actually accentuating that fight or flight response if you're breathing in here instead of down into your core.
Yeah. And I think I catch myself doing that a lot, is I don't realize that I'm not breathing deeply enough. And so I think that's such a great practice. And, even before bed, to try and calm yourself and to take those deep breaths. And, one of the things Jimmy does, my husband, before he goes to bed, is he loves the Pause app. And it really walks you through that process, whether it's they have a 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, and it helps you to really focus in on breathing and filling your mind with God's word and his presence, giving your cares to him, because we can get heavy with everything happening in our world and in our own personal lives, and especially those going through a cancering process, that it helps to unpack that mental baggage, per se, that's you're holding in that backpack, and emptying it out right before bed so that you can have that peaceful sleep, and that deep breathing is part of it. So I love that you mentioned that. Dr. Mark Hyman says, and I read this yesterday, says, in regards to cancer, we really need to focus on the terrain. It's important to pay attention to the cancer cell, but I think it's also important to pay attention to the terrain in someone's body. The terrain is like the soil. It's everything surrounding that cancer cell. and it can influence whether a cancer cell is going to grow or proliferate, or if a cancer cell is not going to grow and proliferate. So we can have an impact on the terrain in our body by working to lower inflammation in the body. We know that cancer likes to grow in the face of inflammation. So whatever we work to lower inflammation in the body, we're creating a terrain where cancer is less likely to grow. And I think that's just such a great preventative tips that you've been sharing already, which is, doing those things to reduce stress, the Epsom salts, the castor oil packs. Those are all really practical things that we can each do, the foods that we eat. And we're going to put links in our notes in regards to all these things that we've kind of discussed if people wanted to deep dive further into those things. Believe it or not, we're coming to the close of our podcast. We have a few minutes left, and I would love for you to share anything that I may have missed in regards to inflammation and for cancer, or even in prevention, that you think would be important and vital for someone listening to take note of or to remember.
Well, so first I have to honor a request by my husband.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get a little teared up. So we lost one of our kids, and we reached out to you guys to help us. And you were so quick to come and, be there for us. And I really wanted to say how grateful we were that you are a partner for us. And I believe that we can change the world if we all kind of connect and work together. So thank you very much. And my husband wanted me to make sure that I told you.
Well, now I'm crying.
So as far as inflammation goes, there is this tendency for us to look at this external, and I'm an integrated approach person, and we are a body, mind, and our spirit, and we can't forget that our mind and our spirit are in that equation. And so inflammation is not just the physiology, the cellular level, it's also in our minds. And it's in our spirits. And we have to be mindful of that as well. And that means that if you have, a negative narrative about yourself, self-criticism, belief systems, limiting belief systems about yourself or the world, that needs to be cared for in the same manner as our physical form. And then our spirit, it has to be cared for as well. And that means taking the time to access it in whatever way that is for you. Prayer, meditation, quiet, and allowing, whatever that higher power is for you to come in and be part of the journey. Inflammation is present. It's called inflamed. We all know when we're inflamed or irritated or resentful or, and so that has to be cared for too. I just needed to make sure that everybody heard that part too.
You are so right. And, to go back to what you shared before, I just have to say that, we are a community, it's important, there's this new book that's called Find Your People. And I think that's something that has been lost in our society with COVID. And, everyone's kind of shrunk into their own homes. And whether it's the cancer community or our own communities, what we do to give back and to support each other during difficult times is so vital, to find these people that we can link arms with and say, you're not alone. And, we're so grateful for you all, and we are your family, and we are grateful for this partnership. And
us too. Thank you so much.
Yes. And then as far as what you just shared, I am so glad that you mentioned that, because so many times we focus on the physical side of inflammation, and we don't talk about the emotional and the spiritual and the mental impact that has on inflammation. And so many studies have been done on the impact that emotional health has. And I can tell you so many individuals as well who have been healed just because of that fight or flight aspect of their body that has been, they're in fight or flight. And because of their emotional pain and traumas from the past, that has prevented them from releasing that and hindered their ability to fully heal. And so I am so grateful that you mentioned that, because emotional, mental, and spiritual healing is so powerful to anyone in the cancering process or in any kind of disease state to release. And we'll put some of those special resources along in our notes as well that can help someone to look into that further as well. But Shannon, it has been such an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much.
I'm so, so grateful.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support our podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Be sure to visit believebig.org to access the show notes and discover our bonus content. Thanks again, and keep believing big.